11/5/19, the definition of success. I think Del Close was an asshole. He directed me briefly at Second City when I was just hired and he was about to leave. I have a few memories of him. I saw him yell at a baby. I saw him enter the theater with vomit stains on purple corduroy pants. He liked me initially. He gave me notes like, "You beat the other player with a stick in that scene." He encouraged me to dominate. I wasn't interested. His enthusiasm for me and my work waned. I knew Close just before he reinvented himself. He was ending his codependent relationship with Second City and was about to strike out on his own. He exploited his bohemian appearance and sold himself as hip and edgy. He did drugs and had a pedigree as a beat intellectual, but he had the values and aspirations of an insurance agent. His core attitude never transcended the foolishness one hears growing up in the neighborhood. He wouldn't let it. There's no money in that. It's an artist's job to reflect the whole world, not merely his audience. Close was no artist. Close's legacy is the I.O. Theater. I've never seen anything on the stage of the I.O. Theater that I enjoyed or admired. I haven't been there often. To me, the place has the feel of a Trump rally. It's a crude and stupid place. I.O. is a place of ignorant name-in-the-paper ambition. It rejects excellence. I.O. is a museum, a wax museum. It hasn't furthered the art of improvisation. It sells it. It's a training ground for noisy TV commercials and insipid sitcoms. I think yes and, which has become the international mantra of improvisational theater, is bullshit. Agreement with everything that is initiated by anyone leads to denial of the real. The classes at I.O. and Second City offend me as an educator. They sell a base level success, embrace mediocrity as a means to popularity. It may strike you that I have some axe to grind here, some personal animosity. I truly don't. It's my job as a writer to separate high and low. No one ever makes these criticisms. I find what is happening in these improv factories to be morally repellent. I saw a conservatory graduation show at Second City a few years back. A lady sat next to me. She was a nurse who worked for film studios. She knew Sylvester Stallone. Her son was in the show. He was awful. The show was terrible. The students lacked craft. The directors didn't know what they were doing. Yet the woman was convinced that her son was going to be a star and that this improv, quote, training was worth his dropping out of college. He would be a better improviser if he went to college. What an evening with vampires. People with nothing to say shouting, "Look at me, look at me." There is something cultish going on in improv education, reminiscent of Trump and Scientology. When I was in the resident company at Second City, sometimes people looked at me with foolish awe. "How do you learn your lines? Do you get nervous? You met Eddie Murphy?" Improv training, as it stands at I.O. and Second City, exploits that innocent, stupid, immature take on life and capitalizes on it. Real education and art would transcend it. Bernie Solins was my director and producer when I was at Second City long ago. He told me, "You don't want to be famous doing shit work in show business. You're an artist." Bernie was a sophisticated man, and he gave me great advice at a formative time. I learned my lessons more from people like William Blake and Herman Melville than from Del Close. Both of those writers worked in the commercial realm and then walked away from it. They knew that the market corrupts. They weren't salesmen. They were interested in what life was saying to them, not in what people want to hear. Close told me when Gilda Radner's obituary was international news, "We're bigger than the Beatles." What a cold, morbid fucker. My job at Second City was like a school for me, but it was actual work with people who had done accomplished work, not classes taught by people who never did accomplished work when I was there in my 20s and early 30s. Like any other school, I had some good teachers, I made some good friends, and I dealt with a lot of assholes. But it was just a school, and I graduated. I'm not part of it anymore. I've created my own art, which has transcended all that I learned. Many Second City alumni have done the same thing. Others are like the middle-aged and older former high school football players who are trapped in memories of a state championship game played in the last century. One of my friends from Second City is very well known as a commercial actor, and he has done excellent work at that trade. He also has written some very good plays and has tried to get them produced. He felt dissatisfied with his hit TV show that he also occasionally wrote. He felt limited by commercialism. His journey to get his worthy work produced led him down the road of exploitation. He found open doors, but they were the wrong doors. People wanted to exploit him. Little theaters wanted to use his name to sell tickets. Actors and directors saw him as a gravy train and flattered him and gave him false support. When push came to shove and people had to take the next step, take a risk, put their own skin in the game, they were nowhere to be seen. The outer rings of success are rings of hell. Fame, money, and popularity, like beauty, fades. William Blake lived a life of joy. He supported himself running a print shop and making art. It is said he lived his life in obscurity, but that's not true. He connected with people in a real way. Melville said, "Fuck struggling to get published," I paraphrase. He worked as a customs inspector. The result was Moby Dick. Their successes were not within the capitalist definition of success. Conventional wisdom says that Blake and Melville were obscure. I say that they knew the world and were more known to the world than Del Close or John Belushi, with their eyes on the grosses, the ratings, the box office, their brand, and other drugs. It is moronic to calculate success by counting dollars in the bank or likes on Facebook. An artist limits himself when he caters to his audience. A commercial artist is like a scientist who works for a tobacco company. All of his findings are bullshit. I was in the Second City resident company when John Belushi died. Bernie sent our company to the funeral. I was walking into some gathering related to the memorial in a line with famous people. Hundreds of people surrounded us as we made our way to the entrance. They shouted at each individual who passed, "Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd." And when I passed, they shouted, "Nobody." This did not hurt my feelings. I smile as I remember it. I thought then what I think now. Who could possibly give a damn about what these people think? What a burden to restrict yourself to some lowest common denominator. What a lousy job show business is for the successful and for the strivers. My brother is a prominent judge, considered very important in his community. When my father died in 2009, word got out to the entirety of the Illinois bar. A few hundred showed up for the wake and funeral. My father was buried at a lawyer's networking event. I didn't like it, but to my brother's credit, he didn't either. He wanted to be a judge because he believed in the law. He liked being able to spend more time with his kids than he would if he worked at some big firm. He didn't like all the ass kissing and schmoozing, all of the using. He was in the same boat as my friend, the TV star. When my mother died, it was just family and a few close friends. The death notice was posted right before the funeral, which was held on an inconvenient Monday morning. We only wanted the people who really loved her there. We wanted meaning, not spectacle. I consider myself very successful. I'm not rich and I'm not famous, but I was a very good improviser and a talented trial lawyer, and I'm a very good writer and a very good teacher. I have a good marriage and good friends. I'm a concerned citizen. I live my life as an artist, and I'm good at it. A teacher at IO recently challenged my claim of success. He said, "Success isn't about what you think, it's about what other people think." Au contraire. Copyright 2019, Richard Thomas.